Good night, everyone. So glad to be back with you all this Monday afternoon. Today we're going to talk about the secular world versus family life. And it's a very interesting topic for Natasha and I because it's one that is not just topical, but it really impacts on the Catholic Church, the persons that constitute the Catholic Church, and really at the end of the day, the core of society, which is family life. And in today's topic, again, we go back to the synod priority, regenerating the moral and spiritual values. And what we see here is that, and I just want to read a little piece of what, Archbishop Harris, but when this was written, he was father at the time, but what Archbishop Joseph Harris wrote on the topic. And what he says, and if you have the book, you could follow through with me. It's in chapter 3, What is Wrong with Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm just going to cut through to some of it because it's very long. And he says, the blame game is simply an excuse not to look at ourselves and the ways in which, over the past decades, we have let the surrounding culture influence us. In very subtle ways, we begin to think that what defines a person is the amount the person has rather than the quality of his or her soul. We have let the culture shape us instead of being the ones to shape the culture. He also goes on to quote from Philippians 2:15 to 16, where it is said there, and then you will be innocent and genuine, perfect children of God among a deceitful and underhand brood, and you will shine in the world like bright stars. And I think this is important in today's shows because we're going to deal with something that is affecting many of us today in Trinidad's culture, which is crime. And we're going to look at the impact of the secular world, that aspect of it, and how it impacts on family life. And all that, not just the church is doing, but us as lay people do in our homes to really try and combat and maintain the teachings of the church. And to me, when I went through the topic, what I really see is the impact of what we call the unholy trinity of money, power, and greed, impacting on the Holy Trinity and Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And we have to really, we are going to jog your memory, have you thinking about it. And when you see the story that will be brought to you today, we really ask that you reflect, you go back and you really start to reflect on what is going on, not just in Trinidad, and how we can better impact the lives of our children who are out there and are faced with the numerous impulses and excitement of the world out there, which, I went to a conference and they said, once it doesn't bring money and it's not sexy, nobody's going to buy it. And that's something that we have to pay attention to. So before I go on and talk, let me introduce Natasha. Natasha,
right.
How are you today?
I'm excited to be here. I'm good. And happy to be here again. We really have a lovely show, as Lorraine said, planned for us. A very deep show. Today it's packed full of themes that would have you thinking, stories that would have you, grieving. We're talking about the role of technology and how it impacts that part of the secular world. We're talking about the role of the media, whether the family in our Catholicism that we're supposed to be building up. Remember, the family is the first catechist to the child, right? So we're talking about the family being that first catechist, building up Catholicism in the home, a Catholic home. How does that impact on society? Is it that's supposed to have the greater impact on society? The scale's supposed to be tipping that way, but maybe in our Catholic homes we're seeing evidence that it's tipping the other way, that the secular world is coming in. So we're going to talk about all of that. We have a special guest. We have her in the background. We're not going to tell you who she is yet. And we have another special guest for him not to feel like he's not special as well. There's my old parish priest, now old meaning former. All right? This is Father Roger Papinet, and now he's no longer the parish priest of Capichaima. He is the parish priest of St. Mary's, St. James, and he is appointed to the Interdiocesan Tribunal, which of course takes in the whole Eastern Caribbean, not just the Diocese of Port of Spain. So we're very, very happy to have him with us. And rumor has it that he's studying as well, you know. So we know that he's coming from a deep place, a spiritual man, a man who has dedicated his life to God, and he's going to share with us now the theological perspective of this. Because, you know, Lorraine and I could go ahead without what we think and what we think, but he's going to give you what the church thinks. What is the church's view on secularism and family life? Welcome, Father.
Thank you, Natasha. And thanks for this opportunity to be here to share with you and to be able to share my own thoughts as well and reflection on what the church really teaches. How does the church understand these things, the family and the family life, the role of the family within our society, and the whole idea of secularism. And these are very important things for us because it impinges our daily lives in so many different ways, both good and bad. Perhaps I can begin by sharing with you a few words from the St. John Paul II in his apostolic exhortation, Familiaris Consortio. He says this: knowing that marriage and the family constitute one of the most precious of human values, the Church wishes to speak and to offer her help to those who are already aware of the value of marriage and the family and seek to live it faithfully. To those who are uncertain and anxious and searching for the truth, and to those who are unjustly impeded from living freely family lives, the Church offers support to the first, illuminating the second, and assisting others. The Church offers her services to every person who wonders about the destiny of marriage and the family. And so, from early, the Church has always been very active in reflecting on family life and the importance, not just the importance, but the vital importance that family life plays for the Church and for society. The culture that we live in doesn't always understand, accepts, or promote our value. And therefore it is imperative for us as Catholics to know and to know well what we are about and who we are, because it truly is precious. What is the family according to the Church? And so we go back to basic catechism. The Catechism of the Church speaks of family as that original cell of social life. It is the natural society in which husband and wife are called to give themselves in love and in the gift of life. Authority, stability, and a life of relationships within the family constitute the foundations for freedom, security, fraternity, and all of that within society. The family is the community in which, from childhood, one can learn moral values, begin to honor God, and make good use of freedom. Family life is an initiation into a life within society. And this is the Catechism, article number 2207. And so the Church understands the family as being truly vital and essential. It constitutes the foundation of society. So in a sense, we can speak of the family and society not as being mutually separated. There might be distinctions, but never separated. In fact, one must lead to the other. And so when the Church understands that family, and notice it brought in marriage, husband and wife, that's one of the founding columns, if you want to put it, for family life. It is there that this whole understanding of a communion of love, and later on we'll go on to that, it speaks of the purpose. So the Church says it is precious. The Church says it is It is fundamental. The church says it is something that needs to be nourished and guarded and protected. It is the first cell of society. What then is and so we can speak then of the meaning and the purpose of the family. And the purpose and mission of the family is that which can be summed up as being the school of love. It's a school of humanity. It is where we first learn, and supposed to learn, what it is to love and what it is to live with others. What it is to be both an individual, but also an individual within the context of a community. It is founded on a given life of love, which is the foundation of its existence and as a communion of persons. Its very purpose, in other words, the very fact of its existence is to say that is to be what it really is, an intimate community of life and love. And its mission is to become more and more, every day, that which it already is, a community of life and love. And this is a lifelong journey, a lifelong commitment. Now, one of the first things perhaps that may be bubbling up within us is when we hear all of this, that it is precious, a foundation column for society and so on. And it has to be the school of love and teaching humanity. And so many of you perhaps may be saying to yourselves, that's the ideal. No one is perfect. But nowhere in any of these documents does the church mention being perfect. And so the love we are speaking about, and so is not something that is perfect, but something that is consistent and that is given. The family is called on these two principles. The first of marriage, a commitment. In canon law, we speak of matrimony as a covenant by which man and woman establish between themselves a partnership for the whole of life. We're not talking about perfection here. Partnership sometimes means winning and losing. A partnership means sometimes compromising. The business people understand well the concept of partnership. Sometimes we don't. In the religious context, it has the same type of meaning. A partnership, sometimes a partner really has to help you out. Sometimes we have to rely on a partner. Sometimes we are the ones who need to be the ones helping and carrying the other. And so that's the first thing. In marriage, a partnership for the whole of life. The second part, the good of the spouse. I know sometimes that is a difficult one to understand that your vocation is given as to seek the good of the other and to try to live that out each day for the rest of your life. I often tease people and say to them that if they were to truly live that, if husbands were to truly each day wake up and to find a new way and ask for the inspiration that they may be able to do or say something for the good of their spouse, that they would be the happiest men around.
Father, and you said so many things there. So before you go on, just to break it up a little, and you spoke to it, that you speak of the school of love, and that family is a community where we learn from childhood moral values, etc. Yet, in today's world, there are many voices telling us that religion has no place in the world today.
Yeah.
And in work, in money, in everything.
Yeah.
And it's really not relevant. Those voices are telling us, and it's impacting on our family life. Mm-hmm. We had the opportunity as the family life to go out and ask young people, what their views are. We actually have some young people, and we have some more mature people. And it's so evident how different their views are. And everyone spoke mainly about technology. which we will show the viewers just now. And what they said in terms of the young people, you know, we saw technology assisting and we saw it hindering, for want of a better way to put it. And all the young people, because they believe in their technology, says, no, we use it for good. We have groups, we send messages every morning, we keep that communication going because we can't be together all the time. And then you hear more mature people saying, no, it's bad. In fact, we don't communicate anymore. You know, so I just want the viewers just to get a little insight into how people on the street are thinking about it, young, old, and then we can probably take the discussion along those lines as well. Okay, so let's go to the man on the street right now.
All right, so hi everyone, my name is Shaquille Weeks. I'm from the Carpet-Chapman Parish, Our Lady of Mount Carmel. I was asked to do this short presentation here. Technology would have, in the world today, can have a negative impact and both a positive impact on the family life. So negatively, it can build up walls between family members where persons would be in contact with their social world and would not even say good morning to each other in the homes or pray together. And the positive side of it, I'm myself in a group, and the positive side, we have readings coming in, the daily readings, from first reading, second reading, Psalm, and the gospel every day. We have prayers, we have prayer groups, we have worship sessions, and it can impact you positively if you use it in the right way to show God's message. Thank you.
It could either be good or bad, because like it'd be bad with your immediate family because you might spend less time with them, but it could be good as in like the family that live away, you would be able to talk to them over Skype and call them, and when usually you wouldn't be able to.
I think it's, well, a little bad because when we have it, it's in front of our face and we tend to ignore our family, so we don't really talk. So that's just my opinion on it.
Technology is destroying family life. We are no longer communicating. Everybody wants a BA, a MA, what kind of title behind their name. So we are just there punching buttons and letting the computer world do everything else for us. We are no longer thinking for ourselves.
Well, that is a juxtaposition of positions, if ever I heard one, you know. But at the core of it, all of us are struggling. All of us are struggling with progress. All of us are struggling with the secular world and struggling with our Catholicism and working towards our salvation, you know, and trying to work it out. So we have to start, as Father said, the basic column of society, and the basic column of Catholic faith is the family, who is supposed to be the first catechist. So we have with us a very special guest, Mrs. Catherine Ramsahai. She gave us permission to call her Kathy, right? And waiting in the back there is Vishnu, her husband, and Liana, her eldest daughter. Now, they have other children, Alicia, and Jerome is no longer with them, but she'll talk about that. Annalisa, Jonathan, and Joseph. They are from Our Lady of Perpetual Help Parish in San Fernando, and we're really very happy that you could come. If our viewers remember, some time ago we had Father Christo on, and Miss Ramsahai, about a year ago, was a caller. Father Christo had called her, and she was patched into the show. You would remember when she starts to give her story. But Mrs. Ramsahai, Kathy, I would like you to tell our viewers, please, about how you and Vishnu, how you all as a Catholic couple, how you all grounded your children, your 6 children, in the faith. How did you inculcate Catholicism into your family?
Well, first of all, when I always had that motivation to let my children want to know Jesus and want to get to know him and love him. And when they first started to go to primary school, I lived in DB Pinal, and I had every opportunity to send them right there. Yeah. But I decided, I said, no, I have to get them into Catholic school. So I sent them San Fernando. The girls went to St. Gabriel's School, and the boys went to San Fernando Boys RC School, and they went also to the secondary school, on to secondary schools, Holy Faith Convent in Pinal and St. Benedict's School in La Romine. And I always taught them, from small, to attend daily Mass. I found it very important that they get to know Jesus by going to Mass. And also we had a mentor at that time, Father Harvey also, and Father Matthew Duro, and also there was an American priest, Father Seamus Maguire, and he would give Masses in the Blessed Sacrament, that is in Cluny Center, St. Joseph Cluny Center. We would go there after to adore Jesus. So I taught them, we say the Rosary. I taught them to say the Divine Mercy at 3 o'clock. When they finished school, they would come across, and I would say the 3 o'clock prayer with them before they go home. When we go home, we would also say the Rosary, and we also use a book by Marian Movement of Priests by Father Stefan Gobbi. He was an Italian priest whom Mary gave locutions to, and she said every time you say the Rosary, Mary would give you a message. So we just open the book at random, we'd get a message, and we teach my children. We was an ardent follower of Mary. Mary was a great motivation for our family.
Yeah, you know, every time.
I know what you're going to say.
Yes.
How we fall short.
Yes, every time Natasha and I meet a family, we recognize, one, how little we do, and we think we do so much. And I think, Father, as a priest, you are probably so proud, you know,
Yes.
to be sitting next to someone like Kathy, to be honest, who has inculcated in her family from young. I had the privilege of meeting Liana, and Liana is such a confident young lady, doing well in the world, and still holding very strong to that Catholic faith and upbringing. And I mean, the viewers will really understand why I'm saying all this when we really get in, because we're going to jog your memory. We don't want to give it away at the start of the show, but it will build, and you will understand why we go in this route. Father, hearing Kathy's story and the impact she had, her and Vishnu, had on her children's lives, all 6 of them, and they're all very successful, you know. What impact that Catholic upbringing can have on the secular world?
In fact, first of all, I want to commend Kathy and many, many of the families that I know personally, and I feel very proud for all of them. And the way in which they inculcate the sense of religiosity within their children and love. How does that impact the society? In the ways in which people can witness what it is to love, what it is to communicate. The mission of the family is to live in such a way that our lives itself permeate society, that the values, the way in which we value each other, the way in which we allow ourselves to be guided by the values of our own teaching, of our faith. And that is what is really needed in our society. More and more families like that who can show people what it is to be friends. What it is to care for one another, what it is to truly hold and to be guided by a faith that says to us, I am precious, people are dignified, and find ways in which this could be expressed in a way that is healthy and life-giving.
I was very impressed, you know. I mean, I'm sitting on there and saying, how did you find the time to do all that? And did they comply easily?
Of course, because...
Or you had some kicking and screaming?
Oh, no, they complied because, of course, it was small, so they were trained that way.
Exactly.
And, of course, Jesus said, suffer the children unto me.
Yes.
You know, in other words, really,
Bring
you have
them
to,
at
that
tender
comes first.
age.
God comes first. Then.
And you know, it comes back to what Father was saying, to have that community and that school of love.
Yes.
You know, that's basically what you created in your home,
Yes.
a school of love.
How many of us perhaps can remember? I could remember myself and my sister and my older brother having to kneel down around Mommy's bed, Mommy and Daddy before sleep, to learn to pray.
Yes.
I was taught to pray by my parents.
Yes.
Yes.
And we had to do that each night so that they can hear us, so that we are saying the correct thing before we go to sleep.
Yes.
Yeah, we had to
How
see.
many of us continue to do that? And the impact that that has on the individual, each person growing up and understanding their sense and their belonging, and to have something that they can offer to
And
society.
understanding too that they kneel before a supreme being.
Yeah.
Before God. You know, as you humble yourself.
Yeah.
Because if the Queen were to pass now, we all drop on our knees.
Yeah.
And this is what I tell my post-communion class, you know. We did some Blessed Sacrament Adoration. And I said, when you go there, remember that's God. I said, if the Queen were to pass, we're going down on one knee immediately, without thinking, because that's the done thing, you know. I say, so that's why we go down on 2 knees for Jesus. We go down because that's not just the Queen, that is God. Yeah, so don't 1 knee is not enough, 2 knees. And that kneeling is really, there's nothing better to tell the children. You're going to now get into secret space. This is where God dwells, you know. Find God in you at this moment now before you go to sleep. But Kathy, I know all was not joy, you know. So what we've just discussed is how our Catholic upbringing, when you and Vishnu meet, and you strengthen your children, and so they could go out into the world and strengthen the world. But so many times now the world comes back in on us and invades our Catholicism. Can you share with us and share with our viewers your story about Jerome, please?
Yes, well, the night before I got the news that Jerome died, they had all gotten big, so Jerome rented an apartment, Port of Spain, because it was nearer work. It was Scotiabank in Park Street, and the apartment was right there, so he could have walked to work or he could have used the car. But that night, before I got the news that Jerome had died, that book I used to use when they were small, Marian Movement Priest, a priest book, I did not use it for a while. And they had all gotten big, and they had all went to study university and wherever they went. And something told me to take out that book a week before. So I took it out and I placed it on my dresser. And that very night, I felt an urge. So I felt uneasy. So I got up and I saw the book there. And I said, Mary, I'm feeling a little uneasy. Can I get a word? So I opened the book and it said, in reparation. So I read it and it said, unite all your intense suffering to Jesus' sufferings on the cross in reparation for sins of the world. So I said, why am I getting suffering? Nobody's sick in the hospital, or nobody's suffering in any way. And so I got a next one of Mary's messages, and families consecrated to me because we all consecrated ourselves, first 5 Saturdays, first 9 Fridays, over and over. And as long as it had it in church, we used to attend to it. And because the school was pretty close to the church. And she said, as usual, I know about that passage. She'd provide all our material needs, our spiritual needs. And I couldn't quite remember reading this part. Even when they die, I would take them up before God and take my motherly arms and embrace them and wipe their sins away. I said, why am I reading death? Lo and behold, next day, I was at the Blessed Sacrament, Friday. I rang Jerome to tell him, well, today's First Friday. He loves First Saturday Masses. He don't miss any. And it went to voicemail. So I said, 7:30, a meeting so early in the bank where he worked. And I went to church, lunchtime Mass. It was the first Friday in Lent. And after Mass, some of my children came in, and they told me to pray for Jerome. So I said, pray for, in my mind, during the Mass, during the consecration time, I said, pray for Jerome. Why? I said, why? In my mind. And I didn't bother about it. After Mass, I went up and asked them, well, what happened? And they told me they found 2 bodies in a car trunk. Well, I realized it was Jerome, and they didn't have to tell me more. And then Father Christian Pereira came in at the same time, and he broke the news to me. And all I remembered was Mary telling me, offer my intense suffering and united to Jesus' suffering. And I said, Mary, I understand now. You told me to offer all your sufferings. I said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Because that is what Jesus said to his persecutors when they killed him. I said, Jesus, this is what you felt. Mary, this is what you would have gone through. I said, oh my gosh, this is exactly what Jesus and Mary felt. And then I felt a sense of peace and calm come over me. And I felt a joy in my heart that I could have shared that suffering with them. And it was so, I didn't break down. Everybody told me they thought I would drop down the ground, roll and scream and bawl. I said, no, this is what Jesus and Mary went through. I am doing the practical side of my faith. I learned the theoretical part, going to church every day, hearing all the readings every day, and now it is coming to play in my life. I said, I have to accept whatever God sends me. I cannot refuse the cross. Jesus took up that cross for us, so I am ready to take up that cross.
You know, again, you know, and I repeat it because sitting down next to you, Kathy, and hearing your story makes me feel so humble, to be honest. And I can tell the viewers now, I mean, I'm learning from Kathy, and I don't know how receptive I will be to news of that nature. And I know it's because I obviously have a lot of work to do on myself, right? And I think that's one of the beauties about really practicing your faith. I always remember Father Harvey gave a retreat, and he said, we have a lot of Callaloo Catholics. And when he said it, I was a little confused, right? And he goes, those are people who go to church just on Sunday. You know, every Sunday you're going to church, and it's almost as if you just have to, they say go to church on Sunday. So you go to church on Sunday, you're fine, you can't wait for you're watching your time, you can't wait for
as soon as you receive the
body of Christ, and then you leave. But, I mean, what we're seeing here in Kathy's story, and from members of the family that I met as well, is that a practicing part of the faith, which is so evident, and we see the grace in you and your family. I mean, the viewers aren't privileged to have met the family, but we really see a grace that's part of your soul, that's part of your being, that is allowing you to really forgive wholly and fully. And, you know, Father, as a priest, again, you must be so proud to be sitting next to Kathy. I don't know about sitting next to me. We're trying, though. We're trying, you know. But the truth is, what Kathy and her family went through, extremely horrendous crime, where, again, the secular world is impacting in this essence that there's a disrespect for human life and for humanity, that such awful, willful acts can be committed. You know, and you know, just to give you a view and discuss that area of how to hold steady, like Kathy and her family is doing.
What is beautiful about Kathy's story, and as in most other stories like that, is that I'm sure Kathy will also say that it didn't take away the pain. And you will continue to have that pain. That pain will continue to journey with you. But that pain has not defined you as a person. Rather, your faith has. And so your faith has now given meaning even to that pain and to that horrible experience. And that meaning has allowed you then to become an instrument that, as you said, to unite yourself with Christ. Your faith has become something that is not just what you do on a Sunday, but it is something that is real and powerful, an agent in your life. It has also allowed you, in a very practical way, to understand forgiveness.
Yes.
And for that, you are an instrument, a tremendous instrument of hope. And I really implore the viewers or brothers and sisters to truly take stock of this. So often we speak of faith in abstract ways. And here is a woman who's giving testimony of a faith that gives meaning. It's not just an abstract theoretical thing, automatic sort of action, but something that really gives meaning deep within her life and can even bring meaning to suffering and pain. Something that we all need to learn from time to time, and to be able to transmit.
When you were talking before, Father, somewhere there in the familiaris, whatever, I'm not going to go there, from
the family.
Partnership, yes.
from St. John Paul II, you said these words, unjustly impeded in living family life freely. And knowing that who we had coming on the set later, immediately my mind went to you, Kathy. And I said that, the normal response to this is that crime unjustly impeded that a would unjustly impede a family in living the faith freely at that time.
Yeah.
But according to Father, instead of taking it like that, because crime can do that. It can just be such a especially gruesome and brutal crime like that, can be so jarring that it could really knock you off the rock on which you stand, until you have to scramble back up kind of thing. But there was no scrambling with you. And I love that. Immediately you were able to just focus on God, because I guess you were focusing on God all the time. Because your focus was there and you lived out of that place. It wasn't like you had to find it back. You lived out of that place, and with those, through those glasses then, in that perspective. So crime did not unjustly impede you in living your freely your family life, If anything, the family pulled together at that time,
And you know what I think of, just to bring it down, because before we were talking of bringing things down to layman's terms, and you think of preparing for an exam, and you really work throughout the term, and you study hard, and you do your homework, and when the exam comes, no matter how tough it is, you're prepared. You write your exam, and you come out successful. And I think that's what we see in Kathy's family. Not just Kathy, because if you all have the privilege of meeting the family, all of them, they were prepared from the day they were born for this incident, I believe. Just seeing your reaction. And, you have a beautiful memoir there of Jerome, that they still keep his memory alive. And he's still with them in spirit. And it's just a wonderful thing.
It is.
And
we talked about, we had the clips on technology, and secular world now is so very, we're not even too sure what is reality anymore. There's virtual reality now, and virtual reality, I would say, probably makes up more than 50% of our actual reality, being online, in that cyberspace. It's not real, but it's so real, What is Twitter? Where can you find it? Where can you find Google? It's somewhere out there in cyberspace, our identities, our young people's identities, and very often the perpetrators' identities, But your daughter, Liana, shared with us a lovely story that this is about a year and a little bit since this incident. And I want you to share that story with our viewers. She talked about how angry she felt,
Liana, on the Feast of St. Jerome, because my son's name is Jerome, it brought back memories that what happened to Jerome, and she was so angry, she wanted to just let it out. So of course she used her Facebook, and before she did that, she thought about it, and then she decided to look up on a reading of St. Augustine, one of those saints, and it gave her that consolation to, even though you're angry, you need to forgive. You can't be petty as those who did the act, because if you take revenge, you become just like them. So and also in order to forgive, God to forgive you your sins, you need to forgive also. So she wrote it all on Facebook, and in a few seconds, word came back from all her friends that they were so grateful and they were so happy that she was angry, but yet still she gave them hope that there is forgiveness no matter what, because God said so. It's not what we say, it's what God says. And we have to live by every word that God says to us. If we don't do that, we would be surely in trouble, even if we have to forgive our enemies.
Yeah, and once again, what you see coming through is the calmness. I would say, like, sometimes I'm hasty, so you vex and you start typing away, just to get rid of that feeling and whatever. But again, because again of her upbringing and her constant reminders by her mother and her father, she paused.
She was able to pause.
Yes, reflect in the right way, and really send out a good message. And again, we see the secular world or technology being used for good, because she probably impacted on hundreds of people by her message. And that's important to remember. So, because, we see, as some of the young people say, it's part of their lives. We're not going to ban people from technology. That's what they know. That's what they use, and we have to show them that it could be used for good as well as bad. I see the Pope has a Twitter page, and it has 4.6 million followers. That's a great thing. So you all could go on and follow the Pope if you all tweet. But further, we have the bad side of technology, and we know there are perpetrators out there who disrespect life and really commit horrendous crimes. What are we doing for those perpetrators who are tuning in to the wrong things and as a result impacting on our lives?
I'm not sure if we can ask what are we doing for them, but we could probably ask, I see what you're saying. See, one of the things with technology, as it comes from, as you said, from the secular world, and is where this ideology rejects totally any influence of God, any influence from any sort of religious upbringing, and eventually what happens is that there's a loss of meaning. Things become, and everyone becomes utility. In as much as this gives me pleasure, in as much as I like this, in as much as you can serve me and my purpose. And then, of course, it impacts, there's a contrast to what it is, this community of love, which Kathy and the family are good examples of. So it's counter to that, because they are trying to live out a sense of that life has meaning, that family has meaning, that what we do and our relationships have meaning, and that meaning is directly in relationship with this God who has made us and loves us. And you find that in doing so, you transmit life. The thing is, perhaps we can say that these perpetrators themselves lack that community of love. They didn't have someone to help them to understand that they can rely on someone greater than themselves. That they didn't have the support of a family who can say to them, you're hurting now, together we will go through this. And it will be better, it will be all right. Without that foundation, life can become hopeless. And who are we to blame in such situations? It's always a difficult thing.
Because we talked before about school of love and school of life, the family being that. We talked about that. And exactly what I'm thinking as you're saying that about the perpetrators. Who would have taught them to love? You see, and God is love. So if you teach love in the family, automatically you're teaching God, you know. Who would have caused them to kneel at night in the presence of something bigger than themselves? Because Lorraine was talking before the show, and she was saying, after they probably catch a gang member or something, and they check his Facebook page, pose up with a gun, and so that they're seeking identity. They're really reaching out. They want affirmation. They want to be taught love. and they're really crying out themselves for love. They don't know that they are not a God in themselves, you see. Somebody had to have taught them about God and therefore taught them about love, you know. And I'm thinking about, as Father talked about, loss of meaning. Very often you see the media. Now, very mindful that we are using the media tonight to tell the story. So the media can be both good and it can be bad. And I want to know, and I think our viewers want to know too, was the media invasive, a little intrusive, or how did you feel the role of the media, what role the media played in Jerome's story, in the family's story a year ago?
Well, the media came around to our house, to both houses, because we live 2 houses away each other. Jerome and his cousin Dale, who died also, and they came around to the both houses. So when they came around to our house, and I didn't like the idea of them coming, because I know sometimes they twist what you say, you know, to impress probably those who will be looking at the, to impress them, not intentionally, but, you know, just to capture
readership.
Yeah. So I wasn't too pleased about the media coming around.
And then at that time too, it would have been a risk.
Yeah, it would have been a risk, because they would have taken out pictures, and we don't know what circumstances my son would have died and who was involved. So they could have seen the family and put it at risk. So you have to be very sensitive to these, because you have to put it in your place. How would you feel if that had happened to your family?
Yes.
You wouldn't have wanted that.
Can you show our viewers your scrapbook?
Sure.
That the family, Lorraine talked about it a short while ago. The family has kept a lovely scrapbook of Dale and Jerome. So that's Dale and Jerome, and may they rest in peace. You know. So we have to be mindful that the media is both friend and foe. I think
It
what
is.
it is.
In so many ways, they have been, I mean, I've seen so many heartwarming articles that they have done, or research where they go and they find persons who really suffer,
Yes.
you know, families particularly. And I commend them on it. It's been a fantastic work that they brought help, and they have brought awareness of certain sufferings. And that is where the whole idea of the Christian family should be influencing persons. And to say to you, okay, you have control of what people see, what they hear. You help shape and form thoughts and attitudes. And perhaps as a guiding principle, we need to sacrifice sometimes sale for the good of persons. And when those things come out, you know, I really want to highlight it. That is fantastic. That they lift up the needs of persons, the true dignity of someone who is suffering, and that we have the power to be able to help. But as our sister has clearly said, you know, sometimes they're not trusted, because it isn't always evident that human dignity is a consideration in what it is they may want to do and what they want to promote.
Yeah, and you know, you speak of it, and I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this family who has done everything right in my eyes, you know, in terms of really living out God's word. Parents are married for 32 years. They have a secure home of love, a school of love. And, you know, Kathy said it earlier, when something she believes and she instills in her children, where on the cross God said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. And I would say, as a practicing Catholic, I hear you. I know all these things. Talk. And somebody attacks my home and my family, and it just may go through. I mean, I don't want to say it, because I don't want to call it, and I don't want God to test me on it, because it is a difficult thing, and you really need rocks around you to help you get through this. But as I am sitting here, I don't know how I will react. And I see coming from you and again from your husband and your daughter, a real true sense of forgiveness. It's been a year and some 8 months since this act has been committed. And I know our viewers are watching and they're wondering, oh my God, you sure this is right? This is not how I would feel. I mean, because it happens every day, our murder rate, we have 350 murders for the year so far, and climbing. I mean, as we speak, news might be going on, or news finished, and they probably said 3 more died.
Yes.
And society is actually becoming numb to this whole thing. Kathy, could you speak and speak to the viewership in terms of where's this sense of forgiveness coming from? And how, not just where, because we practically said where, but how, what techniques, what can we do to really try and live a life like you and your family in terms of the forgiveness aspect of it and not hold on to that hatred?
Well, first of all, I have to thank God because through God I was able to forgive. It came all from God, not from me. Because the Holy Spirit did work over me. Because I'm not strong per se. I can cry easily. But when my son died, I could cry. I just said, God, this is the cross you gave me. You took up that cross. This is my cross. I have to take it up. And we were born with sin, and you weren't with sin, and you suffered like that. Who are we not to suffer? So I believe that forgiveness came straight from God.
And have they caught the perpetrators?
No, they have not caught the perpetrators.
Okay.
But I feel sorry for them because Jerome died, but I knew he would have gone to God. But those perpetrators, if they don't repent, their soul would be forever in torment. And I feel sorry for them. That's why I ask forgiveness, because that would be forever. Ours are just temporary, but theirs would be forever.
And how does that make you feel, that they're still out there?
Well, I leave it up to God now that he probably, this happened, so maybe he wants them to get a chance to look within themselves.
Maybe they're looking tonight. Maybe they're seeing you on here tonight.
Looking within themselves and saying, wait, I know if I can be forgiven. God says he will forgive us if we forgive others. So he's giving them a chance to repent. Like all the saints, read Saints' book for my children. Saint, forgot her name,
Teresa?
No, Saint Teresa. I forgot her name, but she was killed and she was stabbed a few times.
Goretti?
Yeah, Maria Goretti, Saint Maria Goretti. She was stabbed, and she forgave her killer. And he went to the monastery, and he became holy in the end and made it to heaven. So I'm hoping that would happen.
Yes, and we mustn't forget too the example of St. John Paul II, who forgave those
who shot him,
attempted to assassinate him. You know,
and what is coming out here is education.
Yes.
And the role of the church really to educate our children on the saints, educate not just children of the church, I should say, on our literature, that we have that help support us in times of grief and hardship, so that we too have something to rely on. And sometimes I think sermons lack that we don't really teach the congregation the essence of what is really out there.
I'll share something that from the recently concluded, ongoing meeting of the bishops in the Synod for the Family.
Yes, right.
And this is what some of the conclusions of the working paper. Since God's plan for marriage and the family touches men and women in the concreteness of their daily existence in specific social and cultural situations, the Church ought to apply herself, first of all, to understanding the situations within which marriage and the family live today in order to fulfill her task of serving. And this understanding is therefore an inescapable requirement of the work of evangelization. It is in fact to the families of our times that the Church must bring the unchangeable and ever new gospel of Jesus Christ, just as it is the families involved in the present condition of the world that are called to accept and to live the plan of God that pertains to them. And one more, that's the direction in which the synod has been going. How can we as church, all of us, how could we help the family? And that's why I'm so happy with our own synod resolutions as an archdiocese, that we have already identified that as being one of our priorities. How then do we translate that beautiful literature into practical approaches so that families like Kathy's and so many, many others can have the assistance of the church, the resources of the church, to help them in a culture that is sometimes very violent against our values and that which gives life. How can we as a church truly be at service to the family?
You're saying that, and immediately screaming in my head is the Archdiocesan Family Life Commission. You know, this show is the Archdiocesan Family Life Commission show, and by virtue of their work here and together partnering with TCN, we're able to bring stories like yours, Kathy, to our viewers. And the Archdiocesan Family Life Commission, AFLC, you just have to call the directory inquiries if you don't know the number, right? Call Living Water Community and you can get the number. And really and truly, there's a range of services provided, you know, for families who are in bereavement, for loss, separated, widowed. As you say, the synod on the family, you know, you have to meet a family where the family is at. So wherever your family is at, whatever it looks like, if it's a grandmother, we say this all the time on the show, if it's a grandmother taking care of a grandchild or two, if it is the neighbor adopting, in fact, we have that so much, it's so prolific in Trinidad and Tobago. It doesn't have to be a mom, a dad, and children. Whatever your family is looking like, that is family. Under the eyes of the church, and the AFLC can meet you where you are at. So whatever your situation is, pick up the phone, call the AFLC, and there will be a program for you. The education you were talking about, it's readily available. How to parent, common sense parenting, all those things. You know, what do you do in this secular world?
Grieving, bereavement,
yes.
and all of these.
So what, you know, once again, we're running out of time, and, you know, when we start the show, we say, oh my God, an hour, you know. And every time we get into the show, because of our wonderful guest, Father and Kathy, you know, because of the engaging discussion, time really flies. Kathy, I want to personally thank you for coming here and sharing your story with us, sharing Jerome and his cousin with us. And really, what you are doing is evangelizing at the end of the day. And what you're showing us is that amidst this secular world, amidst this noise of corruption and crime and dishonesty and this rage or race for power, that you can find peace in this world once you keep on track and once you stick to what the Catholic Church says and preaches. And by doing that, it's nothing difficult. It's literally going in front of the Blessed Sacrament. It's really ensuring that your environment, whichever way your family presents itself, make it a school of love, as Father so aptly put it. I really like that. I'm going to be using it from now on.
What the church says.
What the church says. Well, bringing it out, evangelizing, you know. Because what we are is a community. And the family life is the core of society. And if we can get as many good families like you and all the other families that we have interviewed for the year, and if we can get that brick by brick, I mean, the Catholic Church will really be a force to be reckoned with. And I just want to thank you and your family. I want to thank Father for coming and sharing the theological aspect of it. And I want to thank all our viewers for tuning in and really giving us the verve and the energy to come back here every week and share with you these wonderful topics. Thank you all, and see you soon. Good night.